Well, Lindsey Graham appeared on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, and this interview did not go particularly well for him. He was confronted about his support for Trump, and I do apologize for hitting you with another Lindsey Graham segment so soon after our last one. But in our last one, we talked about how he, within the context of this brutal ad that went after him for this, very aggressively but accurately used to speak about Trump as the horrible person that Trump is. Now he has a very different tune. And he used to speak very highly of Joe Biden. Now he has a very different tune. And so that was the last segment. Here we are again with another Lindsey Graham, but here is Kristen Welker confronting Lindsey Graham and him being just noticeably uncomfortable throughout this whole interview, by the way, about the statement from Trump saying that if NATO members aren't paying enough in his mind, then he would encourage Putin to do whatever the hell that he wants with those countries and invade them. And here was Lindsey Graham trying to defend that.
Before we move on to my very last question, Trump has said to Putin that he would welcome him invading a NATO country, Senator, if they didn't pay their bills. Should people not hear that rhetoric and feel as though he is potentially aligning himself with the type of leadership that Orban has shown?
That was in reference to NATO paying their fair share. There are 19 nations that don't pay the 2% they're supposed to. When Trump was president, he had a
So quickly before playing the rest of it, it's not even true that there's a requirement for those in NATO to pay a certain amount. The treaty does not require a certain amount to be paid. There's guidelines, recommendations, but to say that Article 5 wouldn't apply because Trump arbitrarily decided that a country is not paying enough is absolutely ridiculous, and it violates the treaty because, again, there's not a requirement.
To invade a NATO country.
No, that's not. You shouldn't say that. The point is, Russia didn't invade Ukraine.
He shouldn't have said that. Oh, okay. I guess I disagree with him, but let's get to the important thing here, Kristen.
Russia didn't invade Ukraine when Trump was president. The world of the...
Okay, and then on to that. So let me address that talking point, actually. First of all, I think it's a strange line of argumentation to say that essentially anything that happens across the world is the U.S. president's fault, and that's how you judge presidencies. I think more accurately, one should judge a president based on how they respond to things within their control. What do they do given a certain crisis or event across the world? So while Biden can't control Putin's mind and control his decision making, he can properly respond, and he has properly responded to what Putin decided to do. But let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say, sure, Putin waited until Biden got into office to invade. Why would he have done that, do you think? Because if you actually give it some thought and you understand things, for lack of a better term, if you understand the geopolitical situation that was going on during Trump's presidency, then it actually reflects poorly on Trump. And let me explain. The way that Trump was deteriorating our alliances and alienating our allies and cozying up to our adversaries, from Putin's perspective, of course he would say, I'm going to let this go on as long as possible. And then when these relationships and these alliances are as weak as possible, then invade. Trump was thinking about reportedly getting out of NATO. Of course, Putin would want to wait to see if the U.S. would get out of NATO and then he gets to invade. Western alliance in shambles, then he gets to invade? Heck yeah, of course. He wanted to see how much damage Trump could do before. That's the only thing I can think of as to why he would have waited, and we don't even have any evidence that he actually waited on purpose because of the president. But again, if that did happen as they're asserting it to have happened, then it's only because Putin was waiting for Trump to do as much damage as possible, then he would invade. And if, again, he believed the reporting about Trump considering pulling us out of NATO, then yeah, why would you want to invade when a few months or years down the road, if Trump continued to stay in power, he could destroy the very alliances that would help to support Ukraine in a potential invasion? Of course you would wait. Okay, so that would be the only reason, and we don't even know if that's what Putin was considering. But, of course, no actual response other than, yeah, I guess that's not correct. But let's move on to the question that Kristen Welker brought forward. Then you have this from Kristen Welker.
Friday, Donald Trump met with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban.
Yeah.
Just for our viewers, to remind them, Orban believes that liberal democracy doesn't work. He's packed Hungary's courts with loyalists. He seized control of media outlets. He's friends with Putin. He's friends with Xi. This is what Trump said about Orban on Friday.
There's nobody that's better, smarter, or a better leader than Viktor Orban. He's fantastic. As you know, the Prime Minister of Hungary and does a great job. He's a non-controversial figure because he said this is the way it's going to be, and that's the end of it, right? He's the boss.
Do you think Viktor Orban's leadership is something that Trump aspires to in a second term?
I think the best way to judge President Trump's second term is by what he did in his first term.
Oh, so yes, he does want to be an authoritarian. Thank you for answering the question, Lindsey. I agree. We should judge a second term, or we should expect a second term based on how we judge his first term. What did he do at the end of his first term that may warn us about an authoritarian threat that he poses and his anti-democratic principles? There was something notable I remember at the end. Of course, he tried to block the peaceful transfer of power. For the first time in American history, refused to give up power until he failed in every allegedly illegal effort to hold on to power after losing a democratic election. Fake elector scheme, pressuring Pence to unilaterally reject the results of the election, pressuring local officials to engage in fraud and disenfranchise millions of voters, allies of Trump's breaching voting sites. Then, of course, inciting a mob to attack the Capitol, block the certification of the election. So, yeah, we don't even have to look at his whole second or whole first term to know what's going to happen in the second term. Just look at the very end. Clearly, he doesn't care about democracy, and he admires leaders like Orban, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, etc. for that very reason. So, yeah, good answer, Lindsey. One more clip.
Let me get you to respond to something that Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski had to say. She said the following about the influence of former President Trump. Quote, "Let's just not even exist as a Senate then if we have to ask permission from Donald Trump for everything we do. Let's just do our work." Is Donald Trump ultimately calling the shots in the Senate, Senator Graham?
No. I mean, I voted against things that, he doesn't like. The point is...
I know he mixed up what he was saying there, but I just think that's the funniest thing ever. Are you just letting Trump call the shots on everything? No, sometimes I vote against things that he doesn't like. It reminds me of, indulge me please if I could tell this story. It reminds me of an episode from The Office where Michael Scott, the boss, is being told by one of his employees that one of his other employees, Andy, is just being a yes man. And so Michael goes, no, he's not a yes man. Sometimes I say I don't like something and he says he doesn't like that thing either. And that's what it was from Lindsey Graham. He's like, no, I don't do everything Trump tells me to. Sometimes he doesn't like a piece of legislation, so I vote against it. But obviously he means he votes against things, and that makes Trump unhappy sometimes. Okay, whatever. So there it is, Lindsey Graham, rather uncomfortable, the whole time and shifting around, being weird, but that's Lindsey Graham for you. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel.